Hello, and welcome to this month's edition of Next Tech Girls Career Conversations. Welcome to everyone who's joining us. I know we have lots of schools joining today who have not watched any of our online events before, so I hope that you'll enjoy it. I'm going to give you a quick introduction first to me, Next Tech Girls, and our partner for today's event, which is Starling Bank, and then I'm going to bring on our panellists. Hopefully you can see an image on your screen at the moment which shows the 4 women who we're going to be speaking to today. And it's also got their names and their job roles on there, but they're going to be explaining that a little bit more in a minute anyway. So don't worry if it's small or if you can't read it or if you don't know what any of those job titles mean. You'll get a chance to find that out very soon. So I am Emily. I'm the director of Next Tech Girls, and we are a social enterprise, which means that we're really focused on making a positive social impact. And that impact that we're trying to have is to get more people in general working in the tech industry, because we don't have enough people with the right skills or even showing an interest at the moment, sadly. But most importantly, we're trying to get more women working in the tech industry. So women are currently underrepresented across tech. And you'll find out exactly what we mean by tech in a minute when we speak to these women, because it's not all coding. That's one of the most important things that I hope that you'll come away from today's session with. It's really important that we get more women in tech across all different kinds of roles, because we need the teams that are involved in all aspects of the technology that we all use and access every day to represent us as people, as a society, to make sure that that technology works for us, is safe for us to use. So that's what we're aiming for as an organisation. And the way that we do that is by running events like today's in partnership with companies that have tech roles or that are tech companies. We also do in-person events, so we run insight days in company offices. We do work experience weeks, and we also have our own big event that we run every summer, which is coming up at the end of August, which is called Next Tech Fest. So if you want to learn more about that or any of the other things that we do, if you're not already, make sure that you sign up for our emails. If you go to nexttechgirls.com, you'll see all the links on there. There's also our social media links, and there's lots of information just on the website as well about the companies that we work with. And some of the other events that we run. So I hope that you enjoy today and that you'll want to get involved more and come to some of our in-person events, especially Next Tech Fest. If you're in or near London, I would really recommend. And as for Starling Bank, we introduced them over email. If you've seen that, obviously, when you've signed up, or on our website. They were the UK's first digital bank, and they are the UK's only bank to be founded by a woman, which is really cool for Starling Bank, really sad for the industry as a whole. I hope the first of many in the near future, but for now the only one. But a really, really cool organisation that is really kind of at the forefront of digital banking. Fintech is often what this kind of part of the tech industry is known as. But finance really is a big part of the technology industry now. So there are lots of banks who would now consider themselves to kind of be tech companies first and finance organisations second, which I think is really interesting. And Starling were really kind of pioneers in that space. So really excited to be speaking to them today. I'm going to bring the panelists on screen now, because I want to get started talking to them as soon as possible to really maximise the time that we have. Firstly, thank you to everyone who signed up who did submit a question. There was an option to add a question when you signed up, so not all of you will have done that, but lots of you did, and we really appreciate that. We have pulled out some questions from those. So you might recognise your exact question that you asked, or there might be a question we asked that's very similar to something that you said. We've tried to get themes from it as well as specific questions that hopefully will give you a really nice insight into specifically working at Starling Bank, these specific roles that these 4 women have, but also just in general, what working in and around the tech industry is like, to maybe help you make some decisions that you might be needing to make now or in the near future about what you're studying or what you end up going into as your careers. And hopefully lots of you will be inspired to consider something in the tech space if you're not already. As for questions, we do also have a Q&A function. So if you didn't ask a question when you signed up, but you think of something that you would actually like to ask, or we're talking about something and you want to know more and it kind of triggers a question idea for you, if you are at your own laptop, then you can just add a question immediately yourself into the Q&A. If you are in a classroom, so you're not at a computer yourself, but maybe your teacher has a computer at the front, feel free to put your hand up and ask them the question and get them to add it into the chat. I'm sure they'd be really happy to do that. This is a really cool opportunity for you to ask questions directly to some women who are doing some really interesting work that might actually help you make some of those decisions and figure out your next steps as well. So do take the opportunity if you think of something that you'd like to ask. If we don't manage to ask all the questions today, we'll do our best to get answers to them for you afterwards and send them out over email. So either to you directly if you signed up direct, or to your teacher if you were signed up via them. So hopefully we'll manage to get as much information to you as we can. Right, I'm going to bring the panelists on now so that we can make the most of the time that we have. So if I stop sharing this lovely image, then you get to see me full screen momentarily. But I'm now going to bring on our panelists. So we have Kasia, Millie, Hanita, and Charlotte. And actually, I'm going to go off screen, so I will be, hopefully you can all still hear me. I'm pretty sure you can. But the most important thing is that you can see our panelists, because I'm just going to be asking questions and they're going to be the ones answering them and giving you all their insights. So the first and most kind of obvious thing is to do introductions. So if we can start with literally just your name, your job title, and a brief description of what your job title actually means. I know that's not always easy to do briefly, but it's really helpful, just especially if it is a job that, you know, the people watching might not have heard of before. Just a quick explanation of what that means, what kind of things you actually do. So we'll start with Kasia because you're first on my screen.
Hi everyone, I'm Kasia. I'm a software engineer, so I'm building the software that in Starling Bank, internal teams are using it to identify and resolve customer issues.
Amazing, thank you. Millie, over to you next.
Hi everyone, I'm Millie. I am an information security analyst in our SOC, which is our security operations team at Starling, and my role focuses on defending the bank and our employees.
Amazing. Hanita, you're next on my screen.
Yes, so I'm Hanita. I am a risk and compliance officer, and my role is basically to make sure that as a bank we're following rules and we're basically thinking about potential risks that might happen before they become an actual problem. So yeah.
Amazing. And Charlotte, how about you?
I don't think I'm on the screen unless I can
You
not
are
see.
for me.
I
I
am.
can see
Oh,
you on the
okay.
screen.
We
I
can
just
Maybe it's
can't
showing
see my.
differently
I
for
just can't
you.
see myself, which is a bit
That's
strange.
frustrating. We can see you.
No, it's
Hopefully everyone
absolutely
else can
fine.
too.
Hi everyone, I'm Charlotte. I am the contributing editor of Noteworthy, which is the section of the Starling website where we tell stories about money and try and open up the taboo around money. So one of the recent things that we did was an article around a group of friends who had saved for 7 years £20 a month so that they could go on a group holiday to Mexico to save for their 40th birthdays. So we wove, which was great, and yeah, we wove the Starling product into that, but it's much more kind of storytelling led rather than lots and lots of things that feel very marketing and product explanation-y. Yeah.
Nice. I love that. That's really cool. I really like that the four of you have such different roles actually, and two of you, like Kasia and Millie, have roles that are, you know, more obviously considered tech related, more kind of technical roles. But obviously, all four of you are technically working in the tech space. So it's really nice to have that great variety. My next question for you is one that we get asked a lot. So it's, what did you study as your kind of final subjects at school? So a lot of the students that are watching today, some of them are making decisions about what they're going to be doing as their final subjects. Some of them are studying them already. You know, there will be other students who maybe are already past that stage and are at university, or they're looking to apply for roles. But it's always really helpful, I think, for them to hear the different subjects that people in these careers did back then. So if we go in the round in the same order again, so Kasia, what were your final subjects at school?
So they were completely unrelated to what I do now. I studied Russian, English literature, and art.
Amazing. And that's what I think young people need to hear. And hopefully that's really reassuring for some people who are thinking, I love the sound of these women's jobs, but I couldn't possibly do that because I'm not studying the right subjects. So already you've proven that that's not true. Millie, how about you? What did you study?
I studied maths, economics, and Spanish.
Nice, interesting. So the maths is maybe more of an obvious bit. I think a lot of people assume that if you're going to work in tech, you need to be good at maths, be interested in maths, have like qualifications in maths. But you know, obviously that's not actually a requirement, but it's interesting that you did go down that route, but you still did Spanish as well. So that's nice. You did a bit of a mix. And Hanita, how about you?
So at A level, I studied biology, chemistry, psychology, and then I did Spanish in year 12 because I wanted to study medicine at the time because I was watching a lot of Grey's Anatomy, and then I
Oh, I
quickly
love Grey's
realized
Anatomy.
yes, and then I realized it's not what I wanted to do at all, but I think I went for subjects I was quite interested in.
Nice.
Yeah.
There is a theme here with languages, so I will quickly chime in and share my A-level subjects were Spanish, English literature, and drama and theatre studies, I think it was called. But yeah, lots of linguists here. I think languages are just a great skill, and sometimes it's nice to just study subjects that you are interested in and will enjoy spending 2 years working on.
Exactly.
How about you, Charlotte? What were your? I know you didn't do A levels, did you? You did IB. Is that right?
I did the International Baccalaureate. So there are compulsory subjects within that. So I did maths studies, I did standard, I'm going to get these wrong now, standard history of art, standard French, and then I did higher level biology, higher level English, and higher level visual art. And actually, at the time, I was going to be studying psychology at university, and I had a place to do that. And then after I'd had a bit of time to think about it and consider my results and just have a bit of space away from school, I realised I didn't want to stop studying English literature and history of art, and I completely changed my degree course.
Oh,
And
wow.
because I'd done the IB, I was actually able to do that because I'd done so many subjects, basically.
That's really cool. So it opened up more opportunities in that sense that you'd had that kind of range of
Yeah.
things.
It's
Yeah.
definitely not for everybody. I think that if you've got a kind of vocational pull towards something, so medicine being an obvious choice, I think that you're kind of making things a lot more difficult for yourself if you're then studying so much. But for me, I'm really like feel very grateful that I was able to do that form and take on so much and then give myself lots of opportunities down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really common. I know for me anyway, when I was at school, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do for my future career, and even at university. So I studied languages at university. We'll talk about university in a second as well. But you know, it's really hard to know what you want to do. So sometimes it's nice to keep your options open and know that it's leaving lots of potential paths available. I think hopefully for lots of young people on the call who, you know, picked certain subjects and now are maybe worried that it's maybe narrowing their future options. Hopefully it's reassuring for them to hear that all four of you did such different subjects and have still ended up in like a similar space, obviously in different kind of specialisms. But also, yeah, I think just the ultimate advice is if you know exactly what you want to do and you need specific qualifications to get it, so medicine being an obvious example, then that, you know, obviously it's best to do the subjects that you need for that will get you to that next stage of your journey. But if you're not really sure, I just think it's helpful for young people to know that they're not actually blocking off anything. Like there's still time to figure out a bit later exactly what you want to do.
And that you can go for what you love. I just think that's really, really important, and just feel the pull towards something and then just explore it.
Yeah, exactly. There really are careers that can make use of like any interest or passion now, aren't there? So yeah, I think the most important thing is, especially for, you know, whether it's A levels, IB, or whether you're at college, whatever kind of you know, route you're taking, you're going to be spending a couple of years studying these subjects, being tested on these subjects, and so it's worth it being something that you actually enjoy learning about, and that, you know, you're going to not absolutely hate spending 2 years working on. So that's really helpful. So my next question kind of goes slightly beyond A level now. So we're kind of filling in the gaps now. We know what your jobs are now, and we know what you did as your final subjects at school. So if you can now each share, again, like I know it's really hard to be brief on this, but kind of a summary of your journey. So how did you get from doing those subjects as your final subjects at school to what you're actually doing now? What's kind of been the story for you in between? And we'll mix things up a little bit now. So I'm going to ask Millie to go first.
So obviously, I studied computer science at university as my undergraduate, which was not something that you could study as an A level. So I kind of stumbled across computer science when reading Steve Jobs' biography, and it was mentioned in there that he studied computer science, and I had always been interested in computers. And at that time, I was like, well, I want to be like Steve Jobs, invent something, and be just like this person that everybody knows. So kind of went for it, and I will note that I kind of had some kickback from teachers at school that said, "Are you sure you want to do it? Like, it's a male-dominated subject for men," which still looking back at now, I think is outrageous. But powered ahead and ended up going to the University of Glasgow to do computer science. And the cool thing about Scottish universities is that you do 3 subjects for the first 2 years.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
I was doing computer science, but I also got to continue doing my maths and Spanish. So it was kind of like doing A levels for 2 more years, where you were kind of eased into the university experience. And then the final 2 years, you just focus on what your degree is going to be in. And at that point, we had a bit more choice in our modules, and we had to do one in cybersecurity. Um, and I did that, and I just kind of fell in love, and I was obsessed with these modules where you were doing lots of problem solving and thinking about kind of how you can react to certain situations. And it was just like a whole another world of computer science. Um, to the point that in my final year, when it came to choosing modules, I basically chose all of the security-based ones and graduated with a computer science degree that specialised in security.
Oh, amazing.
Yes. And then after that, I took some time away from uni and went traveling for about a year and a half. And then when I was thinking about coming home and what I wanted to do, it was during COVID. So the thought of getting a job wasn't that exciting because it was going to be at home. So I actually decided to do a master's, and I did that in information security. Um, and it was quite a theoretical master's. It was a lot of learning about kind of cyber warfare, cyber crime, how companies use cybersecurity. And then while studying that, I started applying to lots of graduate schemes, basically anywhere and everywhere, because I was very happy to just move and kind of start this new life. And I ended up doing a cybersecurity graduate scheme at Dyson. Um, and through that, I got to do 4 6-month rotations in very different teams. And despite doing all the studying, when you actually come into the workplace, it's so different. So I was doing all these things that I hadn't learned about because it was tools and actually specific to the company. And then from doing those rotations, I found a love for what I do now, which is working in a security operations center, being kind of an analyst. So that's looking at, you know, any attacks that are coming to hit a business and how we can mitigate and defend against them. So after the graduate scheme, I spent a year in that team at Dyson. And then about this time last year, I started looking for a new role and applied to Starling. And I've been here for a year, doing the same sort of thing, defending the bank, making sure our employees are safe. And yeah,
Amazing.
it's very responsive problem solving, but really enjoy it.
I love that. I have a follow-up question for you, which is slightly skipping ahead, but I think it's really relevant to what you've been talking about. So I'm just going to ask you this now. You talked about, obviously, you did your degree in something very relevant. You effectively ended up kind of specializing in security. You then did a master's in that space. But actually, when you started working in the industry, you were learning a lot of stuff from scratch, because actually the practicalities and the specifics within a certain company were quite different from the sort of theory that you'd done at university. So my question to you is, in terms of other people that you work with at Starling who are in the same kind of security space, does everyone have a kind of related degree background, or have there been other people who've joined through other routes? What does that look like?
Everybody that I've come across has had completely different routes. Like at Starling and in previous jobs, there's people that have worked kind of for the Ministry of Defence and the military, and they've been working there and then moved into these roles outside of the military. And then I've worked with people that have kind of psychology backgrounds, but then have moved into cybersecurity, maths backgrounds, software engineering backgrounds. So I wouldn't say that you need a specific cybersecurity, information security degree to get into this area. Like, it helps with the mindset and kind of knowing what you're going into. But realistically, for my job, when you come into it, it's you can learn on the job because you're learning how to use tools, and from that you can kind of develop your understanding of what's going on. So yeah,
That's really
it's a
helpful.
very broad background.
Yeah. Do they generally all have a degree though? And I know obviously the times have changed on that. So like when You know, I mean, when I was going to university, like however many years ago that was kind of the standard, and you would get a graduate scheme, and that was considered like the pinnacle of entry into whatever industry. Obviously now there's way more opportunities for things like apprenticeships and degree apprenticeships. I'm just thinking, if there's students on the call who are still maybe deciding, do they want to go to university? Do they want to take another route? Would you say, from your experience and the people that you've engaged with in cybersecurity, especially, because that is an area that we know lots of our community are really interested in, would it be helpful to have a degree in some space because it opens up sort of graduate schemes, or might there be opportunities for them to get into that space without that kind of level of qualification?
I think it's a bit of both. Like there are roles where they will advertise it and they say you need a degree, like grad schemes, etc. The idea is obviously that you're coming out of graduating, but that doesn't mean that that's the only path. You can come into cybersecurity as a junior analyst, and through that route, I don't think it's expected that you necessarily need a degree. And there's so many online learning tools that you can use. So you can come in, you know, having taught yourself some things and people are really interested in that. Or as long as you kind of show a passion and have an interest, I do think that can go a long way. So I don't think degree is necessarily detrimental, but it just changes kind of what roles you might be looking at.
Yeah, sure, and what you're eligible for, but doesn't, you know, not having a degree doesn't necessarily close that door down, which is really good to know. So leading off of that, then I'm going to come to Kasha next, because you are also in a technical role, but took quite a different route in to Millie, who obviously has done very like specific related education. Yours is a bit different. So what's been your journey from school to now?
So if you couldn't tell from my A-level choices, I had no idea what I wanted to do for work. And I think at A-level and at university, my goal was to pursue something that I was interested in and that I was passionate about, and that has always been languages. So I studied Russian and Chinese at university. Mostly, you know, the cost of university, I just thought I'm going to bring the big players into the room in this case. And I thought they might open some doors. I didn't know what doors. And the benefit of doing languages is that you get to have a year abroad. That was an incredible time that I experienced as well. But when I left, I ended up falling into a human resources role, which I thought I would like because it's an opportunity to help other people, but it didn't really meet my expectations in that case. And anyway, COVID happened. I faced a string of redundancies from different jobs, and at that time I came across a software engineering and data science graduate scheme bootcamp type thing. And did a little practice exercise, tried my hand at that, realized I'd been teaching myself front-end development when I was about 11 or 12. And I think this is probably going to go over the heads of a lot of people watching this, but this was on MySpace. So one of the first social medias. So yeah, customizing the social medias, that was my first foray into web development, but I didn't have a name for it, wasn't exposed for it at school, so I didn't know it was something that I could pursue. I was just kind of told, oh, you're not that great at maths or science, so you know, do humanities stuff, which is a shame looking back, but ultimately I ended up doing it again, and I loved the creativity. And I guess for me the theme still is around languages. I see a huge connection there, and that I get to use that part of my brain that feels really passionate about languages on a daily basis, but I get to use it to actually be creative and to problem solve and to create solutions for people's needs. So yeah, that's my story.
That's amazing. I love that. So you mentioned that the bootcamp you did was kind of like a graduate scheme. So did you need to have a degree to get onto that specific bootcamp?
I believe yes. It was kind of a new graduate scheme, kind of a startup B Corp type thing. So I think it's not super official, not like one of the big four or corporate style ones, but it was aimed at people who didn't have pathways into tech previously or came from underprivileged backgrounds. Ironically, you would think that they would be supporting a lot of women to enter the tech industry, but I came to find that I was the only woman in a cohort of 13 when I joined. So I felt immediately confronted by what I'd heard about the tech industry, and I was a little bit disappointed that these spaces that I was hopeful would be training like future generations and really diversifying the industry weren't immediately doing that, because if you do the maths, 1 in 13 is like 90 something, 90 and a few percent, and that's actually the exact same percentage as what's already in the industry. So it was reflecting what the exact status quo was. But in any case, I think it is changing, you know, with Next Tech Girls and other social enterprises. So all hope is not lost.
Yeah, well, it just proves the point that we still need these things, doesn't it? I mean, thankfully, there are lots of boot camps out there that do make a big effort to get more women involved, and they generally have a lot better representation of women than university courses, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I think the average for boot camps is about 40% women, whereas which obviously was not the case for yours, but that's the average. And then I think at university it's like less than 20%, so it's you know, it's better in that sense. But and hopefully, since actually starting working in the tech industry, obviously we know that women are underrepresented, but hopefully you've found, you know, it's been better than your bootcamp experience in terms of, you know, having other women around, even if they're in slightly different roles, and, you know, being a part of your team.
Yeah, and my first role was at a startup for 3 years, and we had close to 50% women in the engineering team. So that was really great. I mean, one thing I will say about my story is, and yeah, like it's already been said a little bit, but if you have no idea what you want to do, you have the time in your life for the rest of your life to find that out. You know, you can make that choice again and again and again. And if you're determined enough, the opportunities are there for you to try something new, however many times you want to restart over.
Yeah, exactly. I think hopefully that's really inspiring for young people to hear that, you know, whatever subject choices they've made or whatever they're thinking about doing next, it doesn't determine the rest of their careers. There's still a chance
it feels
to
like
change
it
their
at
minds
this
later.
age.
Definitely does at the time. I can remember feeling like it at the time, and I remember changing the subjects for my A levels multiple times, including like the week that I started studying, like going into the office and saying I've changed my mind, because I just could not decide. I also did languages at university, mainly for the year abroad, and thinking it's a practical life skill and it's something that I'll enjoy spending the next 3 or 4 years doing, with no idea what I wanted to do afterwards. So I think, yeah, sometimes it's just do what you enjoy for now, and you know, the rest you can figure out kind of as you go. Hanita, what's been your story then from school to now?
Yeah, so I've kind of had like quite an interesting journey getting getting here. So obviously I did biology, chemistry, psychology, wanting to do medicine. And then I ended up going to King's College after I'd finished A levels because I got a place for biochemistry at King's College. So I started studying biochemistry and I absolutely hated it. Hated every minute of it. I was kind of falling asleep in lectures. Like I just really was not interested or passionate about it. So I ended up leaving like after I think the first kind of semester and said like enough was enough. I tried and then I kind of thought about like, hey, what did I actually enjoy studying? And for me, that was psychology. Like it was literally my best grade, and I really enjoyed the subject. So I ended up taking like a gap year, which was around COVID time. So didn't really get to do anything exciting. But I studied psychology at the University of Southampton. And then during university, I did lots of different jobs. Like I worked in retail, I worked in Sainsbury's, I also worked at a nursery for quite a long time, which was really fun. Like I really enjoyed working with children. And then um after that I was kind of like, okay, I want something like a bit more interesting. Like I'd found that in my previous roles I really enjoyed problem solving, so I applied for a role at Starling Bank, a part-time role whilst I was studying, in the onboarding team. So I basically worked like opening accounts, which was really nice. Like I really enjoyed my time in onboarding and I really got to do a lot of complex problem solving, investigating, which I found really interesting. And so even though it started as like, oh, I just need money to get through uni, like as I learned more about like what I was doing, like I really began to enjoy working in tech and working in financial services. So after that, I graduated, made it to the end, and when I moved from Southampton back to London, like I started looking at other roles in Starling, like based off of what I'd done previously, and that's how I got into this role, which is, risk and compliance. But I find that like all my previous experiences, all the things I studied, like researching, problem solving, all of that, it came from like doing just the things that I naturally enjoyed, especially, with psychology. And yeah, that's been my journey.
I love that. That's really, I mean, all of you have got such inspiring stories. They're all very different, but I love the fact that you started studying something, realized it wasn't right, and changed it. I think that's
Yeah,
really inspiring. And hopefully, again, like it's all that there's a theme coming out of our conversation today, which is, you don't have to have it all figured out at 16,
yeah,
17, and you can change your mind later. And like, it's not the end of
yeah.
the world. There are ways around it, and you can figure things out. But I love that it's quite a brave decision to make, really, to decide to like leave a course that you thought you were going to love,
Yeah,
that
it
you're
was quite
absolutely hating.
hard. It was
Mm,
quite hard having that conversation with my parents because it's like, like
yeah, I can
this is what
imagine.
you studied, but I genuinely just didn't have the passion for it. And one thing about like university and studying is that if you're not enjoying it, it's hard anyway, but it's gonna be
Yeah.
10 times harder when you're not passionate about it. So like one thing I would say is like don't be afraid to pivot, don't be afraid to like
Mm,
move around, make a different decision and do something that you actually really like.
I love that. That's really cool. Charlotte, how about you then? Because you've got a different story again, which I love.
Yeah, so as I explained, I moved from psychology to history of art and English at Durham University. And in my third year, I was looking to do a summer internship rather than a grad scheme. So I wanted to do a bit of traveling. And I was applying for everything that I could kind of come across. And I think one of the difficult things is just actually knowing what to apply for. So
Mm,
at Durham, EY basically sponsored absolutely everything under the sun to the point where it felt like they were the only option. Um, and then you were okay, so maybe PwC, maybe KPMG, maybe one of these kind of like big four accountancy firms. And I just don't think that would have suited me at all. So, but it's just really hard to know where to look actually. And one recommendation I've got for anyone who is looking for kind of, I don't know if it would be grad schemes or roles or just exploring what's out there. There's a website called I've gone completely blank now. It'll come back to me and then I will put it in the
when it
chat.
comes back, tell us, yeah, or
Um,
put it in the Q&A for people to see.
yeah, it's basically smaller companies which could be in tech and they will advertise their roles and they might be brands that you've never heard of before and then you suddenly start reading about them and you're like, oh, that's really cool. I like the problem that they're trying to solve. Um, anyway, so I knew that Starling had offered an internship to one of my friends. So this was actually before the app had even launched that he had
Oh,
worked
wow.
there. I then applied. It was a very, very casual interview process. It was basically a phone call with our one person who represented the HR department at the time. Um, there were only about 125 people when I joined, and there's
How
now
many are there now? Yeah.
close to 4,000, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, so I had this phone call, and I think one of the reasons that I got it because I didn't really have any relevant experience in terms of banking or tech, and it was a general internship. But one of the modules I'd done had involved curating your own art exhibition,
Oh, wow.
and I'd kind of gone a step further than was expected because I just really enjoyed it. And instead of just designing an online art exhibition, I'd actually made it. So I'd
Oh,
used
wow.
Wix, so it was all very visual. But I think the lesson from that, I think that's sort of applicable is if you have a passion project and you're proactive about something, not only is it a fun, good thing to do in of itself, you end up having something that you can talk about with so much confidence and it's just such an intriguing thing for people to learn about because it also
Yeah.
reveals a lot about who you are, what is important to you, what do you want to go out of your way to do. So I think starting something and just seeing it through is really, really good. So I talked about that and in the interview got that, and I've basically just gone through various different roles ever since. I started in the payment services section of the bank, which is where we basically work with other fintechs. I
Okay.
then wrote an award entry for this part of the bank, which was very, very new. We ended up winning that award, which was great. But the writing element of that it came very naturally to me. And then halfway through my internship, I moved over to marketing and comms, and I've basically been in different roles in that department ever since. And I'm now part-time and work on editorial. So lots of writing, commissioning of other writers, and doing some writing myself.
I love that. What I love is that even though each of you has different stories and you each kind of figured out what you wanted to do at different points, each of you has a really good example of not knowing at the beginning, but figuring out as you go along, and ultimately ending up in a role that you really enjoy and that really suits your interests and your skills, which is so cool because, you know, there's not that many big companies or like really well-known roles for everyone to think that's where I'm going to work and that's what I'm going to do. So there's always going to be so many of us who haven't really figured that out yet. But hopefully it's really helpful for, you know, everyone watching to hear that all of you have figured it out and have ended up somewhere that you're happy in a role that you're really enjoying. We've only got 9 minutes left, so I want to maximize this time because I've got quite a few more questions to ask you. So I might just do the rest of them one per person. And then we have had a question in the Q&A, so I just want to let Hayley know that I have seen it. It's very similar to a question that I was going to ask at the end anyway, so I might just slightly tweak it to cover off them both because I think it's a nice inspiring one to end on. So my next question, hang on, let me review my questions to make sure I don't ask ones that I've already asked. So, okay, this one is going to be for Millie then. So what excites you the most about working in fintech and/or specifically at Starling Bank?
I think for Starling Bank, because even though it's been around for 10 years, it's still a small bank. We're still up and coming, and it feels like it's picking up speed now. So it's exciting to be part of that and being able to see like all these new things that are coming out. And, you know, when I've spoken to people now and say, you know, I work at Starling, people go, oh, I bank with Starling. People get excited about it. So I really like that. And then in terms of like fintech or just tech in general, I just think there is so much room for things to happen and to get involved in. And I find specifically with my career, like I'm not on a set path. There's so many different ways I could go. So I'm not like in this role and I'm like, this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life now. I could branch out to different areas. And I like that. And I like that I'm, you know, can try different things out and still stay in this area or move to different areas. So I think it's ever changing, and it's worth getting exciting about, and it will just keep developing as well as more things happen, like AI, for example.
Yeah, I think that's such a cool way of looking at it actually, is that because tech is so rapidly changing, there's always new opportunities to kind of branch into. And if you're already in the space, it's probably a lot easier to move into a different area, you know, if you're already there, and just be learning those new skills and moving with the fast-paced, you know, innovation that's happening in that space. That's really cool. Okay, next question then, because I'm going to keep this quick so we cover them all. So Kasia, I'm going to come to you for this one. What is the most valuable soft skill to develop and why?
So I think something that's really underrated is active listening, and the active being the key word here, because we always all think that we're listening, but more often than not, we're multitasking, we're looking at Slack, or we're distracted, we're thinking about what we're going to have for dinner, whatever it is. So listening with the intention to fully understand what the other person is saying and not just with the intention to answer. So focusing, you know, eye contact, listening really deeply and not thinking about what you're going to say next is going to be really, really rewarding, because you're going to be able to ask better questions. You're going to give the person a lot of respect and build a lot of rapport with them. I just think it's a very underrated skill that will reward you as much as the effort you put into it.
I love that. And as you're all being fairly quick, does anyone else want to add anything else on soft skills before I go on to my next question? Any other soft skills that you think are important?
For me, I would definitely say like communication, like being able to communicate your thoughts, your ideas. Like it's like imagine you are trying to play a song, but the speaker is broken. Like no one's gonna hear it how you want to be heard. So I would say like being like volunteering to do presentations, you know, practicing communicating really goes a long way, especially when you're working with other teams, other people that may not have the same knowledge as you. Like it really does help to be understood and understand people better, is what I'd say.
I love that. Millie and Charlotte. Charlotte, you look like you're about to say something. I'll let you go next.
Yeah, just want I would echo both of those and then also add to that asking questions. So I think so many people are scared of doing that, or they think that by putting up their hand and asking a question, they're going to come across as really like silly or that they don't understand. But chances are the whole room has the same question, and you're the one who's going to be confident enough to put up your hand and then open up the conversation. So there's no such thing as a silly question.
I love that. Right, I'm going to move on to the next question. Hanita, I'm going to ask you this one first. So, what are your top tips for job applications?
This is a good one, very important. I think the first thing is like being honest. I know there's a lot of advice out there that tells you to kind of like make things up, but honestly, if you're honest about the experience you have and the work you've done, like it really does help not only like getting the right job, but making sure that you're doing something that you actually like rather than, oh, okay, like this is the job, so I'm gonna try and get into it. Sometimes like your CV, like they look at it and go, oh, okay, maybe not this job, but we have another role that better suits these skills. So just, firstly, be honest. I'd also say like not to just include your work history, like maybe include like projects you've worked on or things you've written or charities you've worked or volunteered with. Like within Starling, we have a lot of different activities that are not just, it's not all just about work. Like we've got the women's network, we've got diversity network. So like it shows that you're kind of like a well-rounded person and that you'd fit in with perhaps an organization that does lots of different things. So maybe including things or experiences outside of work that may give you the skills you need to do the job that you're applying for. Those are kind of the two that come to my mind. I don't know if anyone else has any tips as well.
Charlotte, you were talking a bit about your application process, weren't you? And the fact that you feel like that project that you could obviously put a lot of extra effort into at university, like really helped. Is there anything else that you feel like helped you with getting that internship in particular?
Yeah, I think just clear communication. And just like this is I wrote an article actually about interview tips from another fantastic partner that we've got at Starling called SmartWorks, who help women get back into work or get into the workplace through coaching and a workwear consultation. So they give them an outfit so that they can have that for their job interviews. Absolutely brilliant. And I spoke to lots of the coaches and kind of asked them their advice. And one of the tips that really stuck with me is preparing for things in a way which is a bit more holistic and not just being like you've got all your notes and you feel really, really prepared, but also thinking about how you actually feel. Like, have you had a good night's sleep? Have you had a bit of a walk? Are you feeling calm? Do you feel like rested and relaxed? Because if you can do some things to make yourself feel relaxed, that's going to come across. And you're just going to feel so much better about speaking to somebody that you obviously are going to be a bit nervous to speak to about. So I think prepping for something in a really well-rounded way is really good advice.
I love that. There's something that might similar to kind of the sentiment that you gave there that my mum said to me actually a really long time ago. It's always stuck with me, which is that they're not trying to catch you out in an interview process. They actually want you to do well because they want an easy decision. They want to find the best possible person. And also that you're kind of interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. So there's an opportunity for you to find out, is this the kind of company that I want to work at? Are these the people that I want to be my future colleagues? So it kind of goes both ways. And I think that can make you feel a bit more confident in that situation as well, that it's not all like them testing you. It's all more of a conversation about like, are we a good fit almost? To be working together. Okay, we've got 1 minute and we're going to end on the super inspiring question. And if we do overrun by a minute or two, it's okay because we're recording it. So if anyone does need to drop off, you can always watch this last bit back. We can share the link afterwards. So the initial question we had from signups was, what advice would you give your younger self in relation to career development? And then the question that Hayley's put in the Q&A, very similar. What would you tell your 17-year-old self, knowing what you know now? So very similar sentiment. Basically, what would you say to a teenage version of you, knowing what you know now related to career development? I'm going to start with Kasha and we'll go round.
So yeah, to start with, just to lead off from the last question a little bit as well, I would say like be authentic, be willing to be yourself. If you struggled with that in secondary school or in university, it's a fresh start when you enter the workplace, and generally the high school politics gets left behind. So you can be yourself, show your character, and then the next thing in relation to that would be to start building a community and a support network for yourself as soon as possible, so that you don't feel so alone in the working world. You'll have people that get what you're experiencing, and you'll also find people that can support you on your journey, like mentors or advocates and sponsors. And you'll just find it's a lot of a nicer experience to be surrounded by other people who get what you're going through.
Love that. Millie, how about you?
I think it's a kind of similar thing, but I would say just, stick with it and don't be afraid. I think it's such a scary thing when you leave school and go to university and there's all these new people, and then you do the same thing again when you're looking for work and you relocate and you start in a workplace where you don't know anybody. And there can be a lot of moments along the way where you doubt yourself and you doubt if you've even chosen the right thing. But you have to trust yourself and trust your gut, and like you've kind of taken that path for a reason, and you know, give it a go. And if you don't like it, you can change. You've heard from all of us, like we've changed along the way and ended up in like what we've wanted to do. So I think be confident in yourself and trust yourself. And, if it doesn't work out, it's not the be all and end all. And I know it'll feel like it is because I've definitely had that moment. But as Kasia says, having that support system means that you can then kind of make changes and find the thing that you want and love to do.
Amazing. Anita, how about you?
I think one thing I'd definitely say to my 17-year-old self is that you have time. I think when you're in school, like you're under such like pressure to kind of make decisions that will affect, your 21-year-old self. But there's so much time. There's time to change your mind. There's time to try new things. Like where you end up is often not where you think you were going to. So don't be afraid of like the time pressure and like uni applications, etc. Like it's all gonna be fine, is what I'd say.
I love that. And Charlotte, final words of inspiration, no pressure.
So there's a phrase which is your job doesn't exist yet, which I heard at school, and I kind of thought, like you just don't really think about it. You just don't really think that that's going to be true, and that was 100% true. Starling did not exist when I was 17. So, and now here I am, been here for 8 years. So, remember that there is truth in that phrase, and I think just be curious about what other people around you do. I think one of the things that I've noticed is that if you're speaking to if you've grown up with people and you have been at school the whole way through, you probably don't know what people's parents do because you just don't ask. But actually, you've got like 30 people who you could ask about what they do, how does it work, what do you like? Because I think the exposure of trying to understand what things actually look like without even being there, you haven't got your foot in the door, you don't know what you want to do, just getting like lots and lots of data gathering, I think is really, really helpful. And panels like this are obviously great for showcasing that.
I love that. That's a perfect note to end on. I'm going to say thank you so much to all four of you. I wish that we could continue this conversation for much longer because I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. And we have had a question. Did you remember the name of the website?
I did. I was going to just add this. It's called Escape the City.
Okay, yes.
When I went blank, all I could think of was We Are the City, which is another great
It's another awesome
organisation
organisation,
about
yeah.
women in tech. But it's called Escape the City. So have a look at that. I haven't looked at it for ages, but I always kind of pointed people in that direction if they were stuck of where to go.
Perfect. We can send that round. I'll find the link and actually send it around in an email after this as well. So just a huge thank you to all four of you for partnering with us on this panel, for giving us your time, sharing your stories. I hope that you've enjoyed the conversation and maybe you've learned some things about each other that you didn't know already. And you definitely will have inspired lots of young people on the call who maybe had an idea of what they wanted to do in the future, maybe had no idea what they wanted to do, and maybe you sparked some ideas or at least made them feel a little bit less pressured to know everything already now. So thank you so much. I'm actually going to take you off screen just so I can quickly do final words to anyone watching, which is actually carrying on really well from what Charlotte was saying. So if you've enjoyed today, if you want to learn more about more different jobs, that's exactly why we exist. So obviously we're focused on the tech industry, But hopefully you learned from today's call that that is actually incredibly broad. Like every industry intersects with tech now. Every tech team will have all different roles in it that require all different backgrounds, skills, experience, passion, interest, everything. So yeah, please, whether it's by your teachers or you're doing it directly, subscribe to our emails via our website, nexttechgirls.com, follow us on social media, get involved in other events, whether it's just watching them online or coming to them in person. We've got our big one, Next Tech Fest in London at the end of August, which we'll be sharing more details on very soon. We'd love to see some of you there. And yeah, it's just really helpful, I think, to learn more about the different jobs that exist. As Charlotte says, there's lots of jobs that don't exist yet that you might end up doing, but at least it will start giving you an idea of the kinds of companies you might want to work for, the kinds of courses or qualifications you might want to try and get, the different routes that you can take to get there. So really hope that you've enjoyed today. Thank you for watching. I will be sharing an email with a thank you again, the link to the website that Charlotte mentioned, and also a link to a feedback form. And we would really appreciate if as many people as possible could fill that in and tell us how you found today's session and what we can do even better next time. It really helps us, and it'll be great for Starling to hear how you found the session too. So thank you all. I will end the call now. Really appreciate you watching and hope that we will see you at another event soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.